your article.
Yeah, that thing is lengthy, right?
Yeah.
But yo, isn't it
I'm gonna
potent?
finish reading it.
It's
Yeah,
it's
it's good.
actually really
It's a good read.
really well written. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I
I'm gonna
was
finish it up.
educated. I was educated a lot in that reading. I was
Yeah,
like,
it's
oh,
good
okay.
stuff.
Like, yeah. Mikey,
Which
you would like this
which
reading.
reading was that?
This is it's called what is it? Tap Dancing America. And
Yes.
and it's written by Countess von what's her last name?
I don't have it written down, but it's Tap Dancing America, Cultural History, Trickster Gods and Rapperies.
Yeah. And it really takes you through like from the beginning of what was known as tap dance before it was even tap dance. It was just jugging, you know what I mean? And taking it from, I knew that it was a collaboration of, Irish American laborers and West Africans and Caribbean people. But I didn't know the essence and how it kind of manifested together, and the gravitation of other cultures that was implemented into that whole kind of immigrant culture that was brought up. And I didn't know tap is the reason we have the word breakdown, like, you know what I mean, like, because those what they used to do were doing these tap challenges or these jigging challenges where the masters of the plantations used to get their best African dancer or slave dancer to go up against other plantation owners, and that's how they would win certain freedoms and certain liberties and lands, was through this kind of like minstrel performance. I didn't know that part of it.
Look at
I
Dougie
knew that.
something.
Yo, seriously.
But Dougie, like, that's on some real, like, I always had the premonition of tap and its integration, its connection to like Irish traditional step dance, Appalachian clogging, and then knowing history and the plantation owners and plantation runners and all those types of things, knowing how Irish people were an integral part during slavery. There's a lot of Irish influence in America that we don't really think about, especially within African American culture. It's the Irish and the Africans that they put together to breed the super slave, the one that could work in the fields and in the house. But then moving to Ireland and being able to see Shanos, and Shanos is the traditional, is the old school style of Irish step dance. That's more like tap. It's not like the competition version of Irish step dance where the body is stiff and upright. It's more low and into the ground. The arms are swinging, you know what I mean? And it's more like done with a soft shoe. So you can really see how that connects to tap dance. And, tap was spawned out of people with nothing. It was spawned out of people that had minimum resources. And when you talk about Africans, they had taken the drum away from us. They had not allowed us to train. So we use other ways to communicate through rhythm. And tap was the extension of like Juba and the things that like came before it, the hand jive, all that stuff that kind of rhythms.
Master Juba.
And bone.
Master Juba.
All that. All that.
Are we live? Are we live right now?
We are live on Facebook. Yeah, somebody sent me a comment. If anybody's tuned in, be sure to comment. We might get the comments via Facebook. I don't know where they show up. They show up somewhere. They pop up on my phone. Shout out to Tyrell if he's still listening. But
that's what's up. Well, speaking of Judah, like you were just mentioning,
it's always.
Go ahead.
Judah is the lion, the tribe.
No.
Judah is the lion in the tribe. Juba.
I know. But Master Juba in 1928 was kind of he's considered to be like the father of American tap dance, because as far as you can go back, he's the one that was kind of like put when they were doing shows and actually had the name Tap underneath it. Before then, it was all jugging and jugging challenges and jugging breakdowns. But you know, of course, in the culture, this word tap started to come out, and it still is not proven like where the word tap actually came from. You know what I mean? But it's first seen printed in 1928. So I thought that was cool. But before then, you know, like even the 1600s, like that's when you're getting into this whole development of American dance and dance that's being developed here in the country. You know, of course we have ballet and we have all these other ones, but it wasn't started here. It's only a certain, I would say, tap hip hop. So were born in the States. You know what I mean? Like that's one of my two gravitational dance forms that we can definitely kind of home on to.
Well, yeah, jazz.
To be jazz. No.
Jazz. Yes.
Do you consider jazz being started in the States?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, no, jazz is African. I consider jazz to have started. In terms of jazz music, like it's like hip hop. So it's jazz in America is a reflection of the European and the African coming together, much like most Latin American culture. You know what I mean? Like you see the structure of European music, but then you also see the syncopation and the rhythmic kind of improvisatory manner. That is a large part of most indigenous and African traditions.
Yes. Yeah. It's coming from the drumming. Boom. Yeah. I'm hearing that.
What about modern dance?
Modern dance. The taking off of the shoes. Well, the whole concept of dancing barefoot doesn't come from America, I would say.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's not an American thing.
You know, African American social probably come from barefoot, but again, that's something that came across the Middle Passage.
Yeah,
I wouldn't think so. But you know, when you think about like the early days of quote unquote modern dance with the Isadora Duncans and the Mary Bigmans and all those people who were influenced by things in other cultures. It was always the other that even Martha Graham, they were always looking to the other to draw inspiration. And that other usually was associated with indigenous cultures. Look at the Rite of Spring. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. They were completely influenced.
A reflection of a tradition. It's a reflection of something that is a little bit more primal than modern day society. And I think that's something that was resurrected within modern dance is that notion of being connected to something not necessarily primitive, but more so, what's the word I'm looking for? Historical,
I would say
more indigenous.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Indigenous, cultural, something more natural, something,
Indigenous. You know I'm gonna still make fun of you. I don't care if we're on Facebook Live.
What did I say?
Indigenous. The word is indigenous.
Well, that may be round 4 coming up. That's
Oh, what's that, Dougie? What you sipping on?
That's like round 5 of Crown and Coke right now. So
yo,
and to be honest, I'm not a drinker, so 2 drinks is usually my top. But it's Saturday, I'm feeling myself, and we're on 5.
Let's recap what we doing here, okay? Like for those of y'all that don't know us, like I'm Dr. Ross Mikey C. That's Marc Spaulding, Dougie Styles. we are University of the Arts alumni, class of 2001, 2002. And we are also the co-founders of For I'm a Versatile Entertainer. And we are now live on Facebook, just discussing what our life is about. And our life is pretty much all about movement. You know, we all have degrees in dance, but we look at movement as a way of life. It just so happens that we study dance and we all have our own individual identities and approaches towards how we investigate movement. But we wanted to open up a kind of a live discussion session with friends of ours and just kind of open up our discussion to the general population, so you can hear how we think about movement and you can share your own insights as well. So this is all about movement. It's all about what we say we were going to call this, Dougie. We talk movement. We talk movement. We talk movement. That's what we
I like that. I like that.
Because movement is
the world moves in different fashions, different rhythms, different paces. You know, we all have our own individual rhythmic pace in this life. And so what we're doing here is validating and recognizing these different rhythms that have come before us and the patterns that we're setting forth in the future. You know, there are a lot of choreographers, and I would say non-dancers, that are helping to send the evolution of dance into a higher plane. So understanding where it originated is ultimately, yeah,
you know, there are a lot of
that's the only how to take it.
And I would say non-dancers that are helping to
right, and we just welcome, once again, we welcome you guys to share your thoughts with us, and you will tune in with us for these discussions. This is just the first of many.
This is the test.
Right.
This is it. We don't know how often it's gonna happen, but we're gonna get some of our friends that are out there in the movement world to kind of join us. You know, we know people everywhere, and just to speak to how movement speaks to them in their life. Like Dougie was saying, you know, movement is a part of life. As humans, without movement, we aren't living. And humans naturally are migratory people, you know, thinking of the Fertile Crescent of civilization and the migration of humans outside of the River Nile. If that we're going through that kind of theory, movement has always been a part of life, and movement is a part of our development. Once you stop movement, what do you have? No longer life.
Death.
Yes.
Even death is a part of the cycle of decomposition. The spirit is eternal, so it moves forever. Yeah, so that's what we hear.
So what's the topic of today, gentlemen?
Where is Marshall? Wasn't Marshall supposed to come on? Because somebody text Marshall and tell him to open up the link that I sent him?
Yeah, we need to get Marshall. And for those out there
let's get
that
some
don't
comments.
know who Marshall King is.
Did you see comments, Marc?
No, I said I'm talking to our people, to our audience. I'd love to hear from you. We would love to hear from you. So
the challenge is where do we go to find the comments? That's why I was saying, like, because
I have this pulled up on my phone too, so I'm looking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get notifications when somebody comments on something on the 5 page?
Well, I have it popped right up. I have Productions is now live. So I see a comment.
Who's on it?
If somebody comments on our discussion, then we'll see the comment. Okay, Sade is there. Okay, Ray is tuned in. Remember Ray from PAEP?
What?
Shout out to
I
Ray.
can see it now.
Shout out to Pearl.
Right.
So when you pull up the 5 page, Marc, you can scroll down and see.
Yeah, I can
Derek,
see it. Derek,
wait a minute.
Derek,
Wait a minute.
going on. Derek,
You did not say that Pearl Schaefer was online. Did you just say Pearl Schaefer was online?
Ray. I did not. I said Ray is tuned in. Ray that used to work with Pearl and PAEP. I said shout out to Pearl Schaefer. Ray. I think
Hello, right Ray. How are you?
Hey, Sade. Another U Arts alumni. all these Philly
We
connects.
love it.
Derek, I'm gonna send you this link. If you want to jump on the conversation, you can go ahead and jump on.
Now, what's interesting, what I would love to hear is for the students that are either currently at University of the Arts or alumni
well, you know that's
from
currently
your University of the Arts to chime in and to let us know, how do you feel about movement? What is it that's captivating you about movement and in relation to what's happening right now?
And
how are you moving?
Anybody who's tuned in and listening, let me know if you want to join the call, and I can try and send you the link. If I have your personal information, I can send you the link, and maybe you can hop on and give us some of your insights. How come I can't see all the comments?
Yes.
I tell you what, now that I know, and for those that out there, this is our first time doing this, I'm gonna have to set it up on 2 different screens so I can make sure I'm getting the
yes, you should do that.
question feed in as well. This is cool.
My question is, how do you see all the comments? For some reason, I keep clicking on comments, and I only see 5 comments show up, but it says that there's 15 comments. But I see Sade was one of the last people to comment. Sade, you are UArts alumni, and you actually worked with me while you were at UArts. Then you graduated. Now you're having babies and stuff, which is a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. Keep on spreading them seeds.
Yeah.
But let us know what you're doing with your life and how movement is still impacting you and all that good stuff. I know you say what we doing is good stuff, but what you doing is good stuff too.
Because and I always want to put out there, we're always talking about movement, but we are people that were meant to move. Some of us are just embodied, to move physically, through this world at a rhythmic tone. So those that have a certain perspective of their rhythm through this life, we would love to hear that perspective.
The rhythm of life.
Are you're gonna go into a song now, huh? That was the break in.
All those that song. Anytime I hear the rhythm of life, was it Edwin McCain?
Yes.
Like it always gonna remind me of you.
That's a throwback. That's a throwback.
That's a throwback to UArts and you and what's her name?
Late 90s.
Duet to
Abby O'Brien. Abby O'Brien. Give a shout out to Abby O'Brien,
but is that,
wherever she is right now.
Was she married though? Is that still her last name? Is that her maiden?
I don't know. So we have to say Abby O'Brien.
Her maiden name, right?
What is that? 2000? Yeah. I don't know what your maiden name may be, but if you're out there, give us a shout. Hop on this.
That piece is from like 98, yo.
I know, but I didn't want to put her out there like that. I was trying to at least give it 2000. Thank you for saying.
From the class of 01, 02.
All right. Well, Abby, if you're out there, chime in, because that was a phenomenal piece. Shouts out to Edward McCain. And if those that don't know that particular song, check it out. It's a great song with a wonderful message. And maybe Mikey can sing you a couple of the lyrics.
I don't remember. Your song. I'll be your crying shoulder.
That's enough. Don't sing too much though. We don't get free usage. We don't know if that's fair use.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I sang it. I do not own the rights to that song. I sang it in a lower octave so that most people won't recognize that that's the real song.
Yeah. They probably won't recognize it.
Yeah.
But that's
Shout
actually
out
an
to
artist
Professor
who,
Alan Tereshana.
Yes.
Professor who?
Our professor Alan Tereshana, who's teaching us about fair usage in music.
I mean, it's good stuff to know. It's so interesting because when you think back on our early days of starting our company back in '99, when we did that first tour, everything was trial by fire, yo. Like we ain't know nothing
Speaking of
about
which, you may need to specify what tour this was for those people who don't really
so
know
for those
who we
who
are.
don't know, for I'm a Versatile Entertainer was established in 1999 when myself, Dougie, Marc, and Shiloh, whose last name I do not remember, were on tour with our sister Raven Simone, and she was one of the opening acts for NSYNC that year in '99. So we did like a US
No
tour.
strings attached. No strings attached tour.
No strings attached tour. Was that it? The one when they were doing the dog thing? I don't remember that part of the show, but Dougie would know. Anyway, so we were on tour, and that's where we kind of realized that we wanted to start a foundation and a unit together. We were already building projects together at UArts and kind of, you know, making some noise in our own little
Philadelphia.
in Philly, and took that on tour with Ray and realized that we had something special. So we wanted to kind of solidify it in a group and really saw ourselves as more than artists, as versatile entertainers that produced edutainment. We were always looking at ways that we could bridge the gap between.
Wait a minute. Did you just say edutainment?
Yeah, bro, that's a real thing.
I love that. I've never heard of the term, but I love the term. Can we coin that?
That's what we do, Dougie. That's what we've been doing.
I know that's what we do, but I never heard that specific term before. Say it again, loud and clear. I love that.
Edutainment.
Edutainment. That's a good one. That's a good
concept. Like, I'm not making this one up. Y'all know how I like to make stuff up. I'm not making this one up. This is like real. It's educational entertainment, which is what we've always been doing.
You did Jesse Jackson that one?
No.
I think he just did it. That has to be a Jesse.
The education
I didn't.
of the entertainment.
I will Jesse
the edutainment.
Many of things, but own up to it when I do it. You know what I mean?
Oh man. Well, I love that one. That's going in the bank. Edutainment. That's a good one. Could you spell that for me? Could you spell it? Is that possible? Is there a spelling for this edutainment?
Edutainment. Edutainment.
Edutainment. That's right.
So no,
Proceed.
Back to what I was saying though. Before Dougie so rudely just decided to cut me off because he ain't never heard of edutainment before. We were always, as a company, we always looked towards bridging the gap between concert art and commercial entertainment. We were artists on an entertainment platform, but we were also products of hip hop. So we were using that platform to express who we were in those moments. Ultimately, we ended up leaving the tour to go back to school to finish our degrees, but we kept the company and still worked with Raven throughout the years, producing shows for her solo recording albums. So Five has branched out and done many, many different things, but at the same time, none of us were business majors. We were all artists. So everything that we were learning about the business was through our experience of being in the business. I remember that year that we got, like maybe in the early 2000s, when we did like the second or third tour where we were making cake, like, and we had all this money, like, and then come the end of the year, we had to pay taxes and we didn't realize that we would be saving like 15% of every check because taxes was being taken out of that money. And we were like, yo, but those things you live and learn, you know what I mean? Like,
which is a good note to upcoming professionals in the game, you know, because
when you know better, you do better. So we teaching people so that you can know what we did and do better than what we did. We survived and we always produced, but we always had challenges with having finances to support our independent projects. And now we're in different places in our lives to where we are now building in a way so that we can support our independent projects. But it's a joy to see the evolution of what has become this company that we started in over 20 years ago, y'all. We're over 20 years now. 99. It was 20 years last year. We need to get Ray on.
Wow. Where's Ray?
Oh, we do.
Get her in.
Probably on.
Where's Marshall? We said we were trying to get Marshall on.
Marshall didn't pick up.
Let's text him in. Let's text him again.
I'm gonna call him now. I'm calling him now.
We can get a guest.
But no, Dougie, why don't you talk a little bit about how you linked everybody into working with Raven and how that all came about?
Wow. Okay.
Let's start from our early days because we got enough time to talk.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's say the connection with Miss Raven Simone. Wow, that's an entity in itself. That would have to go all the way back to, I would say, 1995, maybe even 94. I was actually a freshman in high school when I first met Raven Simone, and she was 9 years old at the time. And this was how we kind of connected. I auditioned for her just at a whim. I was in high school. I auditioned actually doing a tap piece and a hip hop piece for her in a private studio, because she was looking for background dancers to go on tour with her that weekend. Mind you, this was a Tuesday. So I auditioned for her on a Tuesday, got the job on Wednesday, learned the entire tour. Thursday, Friday, we were on tour on Saturday. And that's how the relationship began. And when I say a full tour, we're talking 9-10 songs. She was doing what was called Kids Jam, which was a national tour for the sports league and other entities that were bringing in children into all of these social functions. So she was the headliner for all of these gatherings for these athletic performances. And I was able to be a part of it as a dancer at that particular time. And so we grew close from the beginning. From the jump. Raven has this amazing personality, as you all know, and we clicked. And I would consider myself one of her founding dance teachers, because she was still young at that time. So a lot of her dance training comes from myself, and along with a lot of historical choreographers that I was taught by. So that's how that connection started to grow all throughout my high school career. And it wasn't until I graduated to go to college that I met, of course, you two gentlemen, Marc Spaulding and Ross Mikey C. And it was at that time that she was taking her career to a different level. And she asked me if I wanted to choreograph.
X levels, he's taking it to the X level.
Yeah, man. This was my first choreographic tour. I had choreographed, music videos and co-choreographed music videos up until this point. Dana Harris, As We Lay, and a couple of Ravens videos. That's What Little Girls Are Made Of, and a lot of other of her second album. So we were doing a lot of that kind of work. And once I met you gentlemen, it was just like, it was meeting family. And so when I was given that opportunity to choreograph that tour and travel the world, I mean, who else do you want on a situation like that but your family members? So that's who I brought into play. Hence, the three of us. And there was no doubt that, all of us would get along, but I didn't know that we would become so close and so much like family. And it was truly a blessing. Raven, myself, Marc, Mikey, and Blaze. And Blaze.
Lydia.
We can't forget Blaze.
Shout out to
Mama.
Blaze.
And Lydia. Shout out to Blaze. Shout out to
Shout out
Lydia.
to the
Those
Pyramid family.
that don't know
Shout out to the
the
Pyramid family.
Real talk. Shout out to Christopher
Google
Pyramid
it.
Set Speed.
Shout out
That
to-
guy, I learned so much from that dude in a very short period of time.
Absolutely.
True.
Shout out to
True.
the whole family.
True.
What's the Christopher Pyramid line? Talent is not
Talent is not indicative to success.
Period.
That is the key.
That's the line that sticks.
Yep.
That's stuck. That's
And we
stuck.
should say that again. We should say that again for people out there. Say it, Mikey.
Talent is not indicative to success. Don't care how talented you are, it does not guarantee success. You got to put in that work and cultivate that talent.
Well,
But no, I mean,
There you go.
I
That's
still
very
There's a lot
remember.
of talented people
I
out there
still
that are living by the
remember-
wayside.
I still remember. Because since we on this, like, I like the fact that we reliving these older moments of how we kind of came together, because that
Mhm.
brings us to Feeling It. Feeling It was like the first piece that we did, that we performed together, where we all
Stop
started
it.
to develop our identities of who we were in that space in the early days of, at least for my training. Like, y'all had been dancing for a little while. Like me, I was still fresh.
But you know what? Nobody knows our background. Why don't you take us through that a little bit? Bring us up to speed.
Oh, with me? So for me,
Well,
like,
with everybody.
me and Marc
That's
both
fine.
grew up in the DMV. He's on the Maryland side. I'm on the Virginia side. Northern Virginia, born and raised. A lot of sports growing up. Wasn't really that into dance as an art form. I was into dance as a social thing. Very much grew up as a child of the hip hop movement and a child of civil rights activists. So movement was always a part of my ideology and my philosophy. Played a lot of basketball and football. Come from a very athletic family. My brother's the assistant basketball coach at the University of Miami. Shout out to the Hurricanes. We hope that the NCAA
shout out.
finds a way to get it back together, you know. But so I sang a lot. Like y'all know, singing was like the thing that I loved.
Shout out.
yeah.
And I sang in choirs and all that kind of stuff growing up. Not in the church choir. I just because I didn't want to be in church that much. But I sang in the school choir. I looked for any opportunity I could to sing. I sang to girls. I sang to my brother's girlfriends, to girls I wanted to date, and like I was just singing, you know, R&B all day. You know what I mean? Like, and so it wasn't until I got to college, you know, growing up in suburban white America, the decadent upbringing that I had. I got to college and realized that I wasn't really happy with what I had learned in my life up to that point, because didn't really feel like it was gonna catapult me into the direction where I knew I was supposed to be going. And where I was supposed to be going was into a life of happiness and like spiritual groundedness. So, you know, I started doing little competitions at my first university, at James Madison University, and noticed that, oh, I got some talent and people are taking notice, like that I can actually perform. So I just on a whim was like, okay, I need to make this decision and decide to myself, you know, my spiritual practice was developing, me discovering Rastafari as my faith. And so as I'm putting myself in this perspective of like, what do I want to do with my life? I can't sit at a desk all day and study math. And I was a small business and entrepreneur management major, ended up owning my own business. So it worked out. But I wish I had stuck in those business classes. Maybe I would have known about the tax situation a little bit better. Anyway, I just decided to switch my major to dance because I thought dance was going to be easy. It was like dance, music, or theater. Theater has a lot of reading and a lot of theory. Music was a lot of theory and a lot of reading. I couldn't read music and I didn't play any instruments. So I was like, yo, I can dance. Dance easy, right? Like, let me just go ahead and like see what this is about. Like, go to the dance department and say, hey, I want to dance. And they were like, you're a guy and you're a person of color. There was only 2 other dudes that was even associated with a dance program. So they were like, okay, well, we'll sign you up for some classes. If it goes well, you know, you can switch your major. And so I got into the classes and was like, yo, this is kind of cool. I still remember being in my first like jazz class. my eyes were glued on the floor like this, watching people do a grapevine. Because I was like, what are they doing with their legs? Is going across and front and back and forward. And I was like, I ain't know what to do. So, you know, and then me being so naive to what dance was, I got into it thinking that I wanted to do, you know, I'm hip hop. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna train here, but I really just want to do the video stuff. This will help me do what I want to do. And so I think after being in dance classes like basic modern and, you know, jazz and basic ballet for like one semester, I decided to go to Bates Dance Festival in Maine at Bates College in Lewiston, Maine. And the whole reason why I was going was to study with Rennie Harris in Pure Movement. Anybody y'all don't know who Rennie Harris is?
Shout out to Rennie Harris.
One of the founders of Philly. Like, shout out to Rennie Harris in Pure Movement. I mean, he set me on the path to really find my way within movement. Because I was in dance thinking that, you know, I was going to do hip hop. Then I saw Rennie and Crystal Frazier and Dwayne Lee and Pardell, like
shout out to Crystal,
shout out to Dwayne, shout out to Cricket, shout out to all of them in the early, I mean the late 90s, Rennie Harris. Man, I saw these guys perform what we knew of as street dance at a contemporary dance, at a modern dance festival. And Rennie did his solo. I can't remember the name of the solo, but he does a solo where he's taught, there's a voiceover of his voice. And all you hear is like the sound of his breath. And he's animated.
I've seen that.
He's ticking. And at the very end, like he like shoots himself. And I tell you, my mind was blown. I was in his rap that summer. My mind was blown because I was seeing my culture in a different way. Seeing it in a contemporary setting on a stage, and was like, yo, I'm hip hop. Like, I know I'm hip hop. But there's something different about what I'm supposed to be doing. I did Rennie's rep that year and loved it, and got back to UArts. I mean, not to UArts, got back to JMU and realized that I was not going to get the type of training that I wanted at JMU. So I decided to transfer. Like all the people that I met at Bates that year, Philip Hamilton, Dave Dorfman, T.T. King, Nancy Stark Smith, KJ Holmes, all these like huge names in modern dance. I knew none of them. But they all were like, you need to focus on your technique. I was like, what the hell is technique? Like, I'm moving with the spirit, you know, like, and so that helped plant a seed for when I ended up transferring to the University of Arts and really finding out what technique is. And I'm great. It's weird that I ended up in Philly because I never ended up working with Rennie directly. You know, I go and take class every once in a while, see him around the city, but never work with Pure Movement or Rennie directly throughout the time that I was in Philly. Fast forward to 2012, after I moved back from Ethiopia to the States, and I'm getting ready to go to Ireland to do my master's, and I'm in Trinidad at the New Waves Institute. Shout out to Makeda Thomas, shout out to Christopher Walker for New Wave directors. That's a summer institute that happens every summer down in Trinidad and the Caribbean. 2012, who is my roommate at this conference that I'm teaching at? None other than Rennie Harris.
Wow.
So, concentric circles, man. I talk about that a lot. You know, in terms of my career, how things have kind of come back and resurfaced. That's why it's so important to build bridges and not burn them. You know what I mean? Like, because you don't never know how you connect to somebody here, how you may connect with them somewhere in your career, somewhere else in your career. When me and Rennie linked up in Trinidad, all he could do is smile because he remembered me as like, man, I remember your dreads were about this long, you had braces, and you were eager, you were hungry. But I knew you wasn't gonna really do hip hop. And I was like, no, I didn't pursue hip hop dance, but you were the one that instilled in me, no matter what I do, I'm hip hop. Without hip hop, I would not know who I am. I would not know what time it is, to quote, Flavor Flav. Why you think Flavor Flav wore the clock? Because he was always trying to let people know you need to know what time it is. You got to stay current. So the beauty of that experience was like, now knowing that, I manifest my culture in everything that I do. Hip hop never leave me, even though I consider myself to be an urban contemporary dancer.
You know what's interesting about everything you
So
just
that's kind
said?
of how I got into dance. Was that?
Yeah.
What'd you say, Dougie?
No, I was just saying that's so interesting. You know how you have these mentors of hip hop that don't necessarily get the clout that they deserve, you know, for bringing other people into the culture or to the overstanding of the culture, you know, in which, and you know, Rennie Harris was yours.
Isn't that roster jargon? Is that?
Hey, there you go.
Well, you know,
Word sound power.
Hip hop. Unfortunately, hip hop is still considered a second class citizen. It's considered low art.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's why it's not given it's just due a lot of times.
It's considered low art to low brow people. You know what I mean? Like people that don't understand the fullness of the depth of hip hop culture, and they marginalize it as something that's just street. And as many of us know, not anybody can do it. The amount of work that you take, that you put in to be a b-boy, is probably the same, if not more, time you put into the ballet studio to learn how to do 6,000 pirouettes. You know what I mean? Like,
that's so funny because Marc and I are constantly talking about that particular issue right there. The fact that, you know, the dance world is so segmented and segregated in a sense, you know, where it's this whole technical dance versus freestyle or urban dance. You know, it's been around for ages, and that the line would get, you know, smaller and smaller.
Right.
But it's still at that way. It's still from what I would like to consider to be not necessarily non-dancers.
Marshall, you're hunting the hair.
I would say dance enthusiasts, those that dance for the simple passion and the love for it, right? Oh, wait a minute. We got somebody else.
You know Marshall not gonna go his video
Don't
live.
tell me we have the world famous art director.
He ain't gonna video.
Okay, so wait a minute. So for Facebook out there, those that don't know, the special guest we have today is a phenomenal art director in the business that does all the commercials and videos that you watch, that you may not know who's behind all the slick and savvy sets that you have. It's Marshall King. This guy right here that's not showing his video. That's him. Yeah. So you have to understand that the arts, and when you're talking about direction and you're talking about production of video, it's not just about what you see in front of the camera. All of the magic that happens behind the camera is where a lot of the power is. And this gentleman here, Marshall King, is one of the masters at recreating and imagining and redesigning and configuring different sets and atmospheres for these performers to do their thing. Yeah, and without gentlemen like this, you know what I mean, our dreams and possibilities wouldn't be true. So kudos to shout outs to Marshall King up in this joint.
with the lack of video feed.
Hey, when you're working behind the scenes, it's only natural, right?
Right. You know, his face is never seen. Like, you know what I mean? He's always
your face don't need to be seen. Your work is seen.
But Marshall, you know, it's important to mention that Marshall has been a part of Five from the early days.
Early.
Marshall used to shoot so many independent films back in the day in Philly on rooftops and alleyways, like Water Theory.
Wait a minute.
And Marshall is also a graduate of University of the Arts.
UArts.
Yes, another UArts alum.
And Ellington. Didn't y'all both go to Ellington?
And yes.
Yeah.
Marshall and I are both. Yeah. Shout out to Duke Ellington, Washington, D.C. Marshall is an alumnus of Duke too, so definitely.
And I have to, as we're giving kudos to Marshall, right? Oh, go ahead, Mikey.
Keisha Kyle's online. Alicia, shout out to Alicia.
Hey, what's good?
I don't know who else is still listening.
But I wanted to say something. So as we're talking about Marshall King, I want to say that he's one of the first independent film directors to start videotaping dance as a street or parkour. This was before it was parkour. It was called Dachiology, but before it was parkour. But to really take in the cinematic quality of dance in the urban streets. We did a short movie that was geared towards freestyle dance in the streets, or your parkour, as it is to this, as it's related to right now. But one of the very first directors of our time, of our day, to start to implement that kind of
man, we always
cinematic quality.
It's just money don't ever really provide us with the platform to be able to show people our innovation.
Hey, I hear you, but we got to give credit. Hey, this was before YouTube.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Marshall, how does a movement affect your life? You might even want to talk about, because you shot the Move video, that Move docu-series that we was working on back in the day. Yo, we got so much stuff that the world never heard about. Y'all don't know.
Shout out to Antonio. But yeah, definitely Marshall talking about movement, but think about it in a broader sense, not just, literal dance.
How do you
just movement,
bro? How do you move?
I mean, that was just a time and expression that I think I was really just, capturing some of the, the energy that I was surrounded by, which was, five, and how you guys just all played on each other and really just, brought just like an interactive sense of being yourself to, to an aesthetic form, It was just a blessing for me to be able to work with you all as guys, and bringing it all together. I guess I was really just.
What's interesting is that okay? Because you come from a performing arts background. Like you said before, you actually went to school with Marc at some point at Duke Ellington in DC, right? Which is just like this hub of creative people.
You know what I mean? For art school, didn't you, Dougie?
Yeah, I went to North Atlanta School of the Arts in Atlanta, Georgia, which is pretty much the equivalent of the Duke Ellington in DC.
And I went to Robert E. Lee High School, which they are now attempting to change the name of that school in Springfield, Virginia. Shout out to the field. Shout out to the GAG. You know who it be. The one they call Ross Mike Gate.
Yo, but speaking of which, because I
know what?
People,
I want to talk about.
Go ahead.
I want to talk about the connection, the connective tissue that exists within all of us, the four of us, and some of which we didn't even know or realize existed until later. So obviously Marshall and I went to high school together, right? Duke Ellington, we had that connection there. Right. Then Mikey and I grew up within a certain 10, 15 mile radius of each other and didn't know.
My brother-in-law worked with his mom. We just recently found that out. They've been working together for I don't know how many years.
Exactly. Then Dougie and I shared one of the same jazz teacher had no idea. Well, he had mentioned, I think he had mentioned.
Say the name. Say the name.
He had
Come on.
mentioned. Shout out to
Adrian Bolton.
Adrian Bolton. Shout out
Yes.
to Adrian Bolton.
Adrian Bolton. Mr.
Yeah.
Bolton.
Mr. Bolton. So he had told us about each other before we even met at UART. So
Modern
there's just this connective tissue. There's just this connective tissue that exists with all of us, and it's so ironic that we have become so
ironic,
close.
Man. Cosmic, yes, because they say like-minded energy gravitates towards itself. And you know how metaphysical and philosophical I can be. We are spiritual energies having a human experience. So naturally, our energy is gravitating towards each other because for some reason we've been connected beyond this. And I think for all of us, like, our connection is bigger than the flesh. You know what I mean? It's deeper than the flesh. Like, y'all my brothers, but not because we come from the same bloodline. Like, y'all my brothers in spirit and in energy.
And creativity.
Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Life. Creation of life. Creation.
Now, what I find interesting, we're talking about this web or lineage of creativity, right? And I think Marc and I talked about this a lot, because those that don't know, Marc, Spaulding, and I are getting our master's at the University of Irvine, California. We're about to complete our first year. We have one more year. And just to let you know, Mr. Ross Mikey C has completed his doctorate, from University.
I have a master's degree in ethnochoreology, which is essentially cultural dance anthropology, and I have a PhD in arts practice research. Both my master's and my PhD looked at the development of Ethiopian modern dance. Continue, Dougie.
Yes. And the director underneath Mr. Marshall King has it. Go on and tell them what you got from the University of the Arts.
I have a degree in film video, a bachelor's, a double degree.
What Marshall say the other day about going back to school? He was like, why would I go back to school? Like, am I trying to go backward in my career?
Shots fired.
Shots fired. Shots fired. It was funny though.
But you know what? It's real talk. It's all love and it's real talk. Because the ultimate thing is, and honestly, this is one of the things that I came into contact with before I even started to go to college. As a dancer, do you need a degree?
Well, no.
Let's talk about that.
You don't. I think it's a matter of a career path and your choices that you make. I think to be a performer, you don't have to go and get a degree. You just got to train. You got to know people. You got to network. You got to build yourself. The thing that university provides is structure to continue your training. For somebody like me, I didn't dance before. There was no way I was going to come out of high school and then decided I was going to be a professional dancer, not having ever really taken no dance classes. For me, I was on a deeper sense for personal discovery, more so than just like a career. And I think that was a big reason why I personally was like, I'm gonna leave this tour and go back and study myself a little bit more. You know what I mean? When we were on tour, it was like, okay, this is cool. The entertainment, like getting your feet wet with the pop life and that kind of commercial stage. But the experience showed me that wasn't everything that I wanted. there was something more that I still needed to investigate. So for me, school was a necessity, but graduating, I never thought I would go back to school. When we graduated from UArts, I never thought I was going back to school. I never thought I'd get a master's or a PhD. You know what I mean? It's just circumstances of where I wanted to take my career. Everybody's path is different. And a great leader shows people how to go onto their own path, not to follow them. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has their own unique path.
Yeah,
so
I
don't
love
think
that.
it's a necessity. I don't think so. I think it depends upon the person.
Yeah.
There are people who've had amazing careers that don't have
depends
no
on what
degree.
you want. Yeah.
But to teach nowadays, that we're finding out, to teach, especially on a third level education, like a university level, obviously having degrees is really going to benefit you. It all depends upon how you're trying to navigate yourself through the spectrum of movement as a career, or dance and the arts as a career.
Yeah.
What's your take, Marc?
I think that it really depends on what you want. I mean, as a performer, you know, I come from a background where a lot of my teachers, my older teachers did not have a degree. Some of my younger teachers, they did have a degree. But as a performer, I think around the year 2000, things, that model started to change, where a lot of younger dancers were, or at that time, we're talking 20 years ago, were being encouraged to go to school. I think our generation, they were starting to encourage dancers or artists to go to school. Whereas before, I would say before 2000, it wasn't really as common. If you were going to do it as a performer or as talent, that wasn't something that was a necessity or viewed as a necessity. But like what Mikey was saying, you know, if your goal is to teach at an institution of higher learning, I would say it really is a necessity. There's no getting around it. You may be asked to come in as a special guest, and that's if you're talking a legend, where they bring in as an honorary, they give an honorary degree or an honorary title. But other than that, even if you have a well-accomplished career, it's really unlikely that you are going to get a position at a university. And that's because as performers, a lot of times, or as artists on a university level, you're being asked to write and read and to lecture on a much more I would say sophisticated and well below the surface of things. You have to go a lot deeper, and you need that information, right? You need that information to be able to educate, to be able to discuss these topics within dance and arts in general. A lot of artists are unwilling to do that, or have the skill set to do it. And so I think, you know, having that degree, you know, is a necessity for those who want to do it.
And I think you mentioned something completely that was pertinent in your whole statement, and that's the fact that in furthering the education, you learn how to describe and speak about.
You learn the language.
Yeah, well, it's not just learning the language.
It's a vocabulary.
You know, it
is.
Honestly, I think it's bigger than the vocabulary. I think it's bigger than a vocabulary.
I think it's a part. Yeah, it is, but there's a part of it. I only say that because that's what my master's director, and who ended up being my PhD supervisor, when I finished, like she looked at me and she was like, "Ross, now you know the language." Because she was like, you already had the intelligence, you already could articulate yourself through your own vernacular, but now you understand academic language and how to write academically and how to express yourself in a lay's terms so that people that are not artists get it. And I understand what she means now that I'm teaching at a university. But
Well, see, the
also
thing
to
is
speak
that-
to Mark's point
Definitely,
about,
because
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, to speak to Mark's
yeah, no,
point,
I would. The language. I agree with Mikey. The language is different. The vocabulary or the vernacular used in the studio, and people that it's stuff that's used when you're in the theater is different as a dancer or as an artist. It's different than how it's used in academia. The language, the vernacular in academia is totally different. Being a professional dancer and then being in academia now, it's
completely different.
that's my point. That's my point. And picking up on where Marc was talking about earlier about like to teach, you know, when I moved back to the States from Ethiopia, my first university job was at UArts. Shout out to Donna Faye Birchfield. It's just the fact that she knew me from old school ADF days before I got to UArts that we had a connection. So I got in and started teaching Ethio Modern. And being there with the like 15 some odd years that I had of experience as a professional up to that point, still was not going to be enough to get me a full-time position at the University of Arts at that time. This is in like 2011. So she was encouraging me, you know, you need to look for a master's program, you need to do your master's. But much like talent, the credentials are not indicative to success. Because me doing a master's and getting a PhD, I ended up applying at UArts twice and didn't even get an interview. That's not a knock at Donna Faye, because I know how search committees work and all that kind of stuff. But it's just a reality of like, yo, I really wanted to teach there because that's my alma mater. I feel good being in that space and carrying the torch and the legacy of the people that I know are being phased out. But that's obviously not the place where I'm supposed to be. That's why I landed in the D. But, you know, it's interesting because even with the credentials, I only got 2 interviews. I applied for over 30 different positions, most of them in California. You know what I mean? Like, and did not get one even like bat an eye. 2 interviews. With close to 20 years of experience and 3 degrees. 2. Person of color. 2 interviews. Man, 2 interviews. Like, I'm a diversity hire. You know what I mean? Plus, you know, we're unique in our world, being heterosexual male Black dancers. That is in an urban contemporary dance world. Like, we're different, but still 2 interviews. Maybe now that I'm back in America, I'll get more pull and more notice of what I'm doing and what I can contribute to other spaces. But it was interesting because, you know, I'm thinking like, oh, I got a PhD now. Everybody gonna want to hire me. No.
Well, you know, it also is a matter of connection. Unfortunately, it's not always the person who gets the job isn't always the most worthy of that position. It always has a lot to do with who you know. And you know, a lot of times people are looking to hire who they know and who they are friends with or affiliated with. That's
to some extent.
Yeah.
To some extent, you're right. I mean, politics are everywhere, and that's another thing. Like, and I didn't, you know, I don't think again, my naivety to dance as a career, I feel in so many ways has allowed me to flourish. Me auditioning for Pilables and not really realizing who they were and getting hired. You know what I mean? Like, and that has kicked open so many doors. But sometimes it works to your disadvantage to not understand the politics of certain environments. Me being the type of person that I am, I learn quick. And the type of people we are, we got to learn on being in our field, you got to learn on your feet. So it's like when you're in those environments and you can see and feel the energy around, you just got to pick up and figure out the best way to move forward and navigate. Like that panel that I was on for Brenda. Shout out to Dr. Brenda Dixon's Godchild. With IABD, International Association of Blacks in Dance, a couple of years ago. That panel about navigating ourselves through troubled waters.
Shout out to Marlisa.
Yeah.
Shout out to Marlisa Brown Swinton. She's watching. Appreciate it.
So, but that panel was all about navigating yourself as a person of color in academia and navigating yourself through troubled water. Me and my naivety, I don't even recognize that there's trouble in environments. And sometimes I don't feel like the environment recognizes that there's trouble until I show up. And I don't know.
I mean,
I'm the cause.
it could be the way you. It could be the way you look. I don't know. I mean, that could be part of it. You know what I mean?
Because people.
Yeah, you're not necessarily the typical
let's talk about that.
look.
Let's talk about
of the professional dancer.
That's the thing. I said that to somebody.
And I would like to get Marshall aspect of specific images on camera and how often they're utilized in the professional game. You know what I mean? Because he has a lot of insight of behind the camera and what actors or what talent is utilized in certain aspects of either commercial art or, you know, concert art or, you know, indie art. You know, he does a lot of videography for social media. I know he does some things with now you can. Snoop and, you know, that aspect. And then he does a lot of commercial work. You know, he does a lot of movie work. So in that and talking about movement, dance, and color, you know, how does that fall into the place? I mean, and where does dance have its place in that particular aspect? You know, because when we're talking about dance, a lot of the dance that gets, you know, the mainstream media attention is the non-technical dance. So it's, you know, it's social dance, it's twerking, it's, you know, things of that sort. So where does, you know, the whole education of movement and the vernacular of that come into play? You know, how is that marketable? Where is it marketable? And how can we make it more marketable for people that are in that?
Well, interesting enough you say that. I think in the past 5 to 10 years, the movement itself has increased in its respect and culture. I mean, in the past 15 years, you know, they've introduced, you know, the artistic director, the choreographer, as a Oscar-winning category. You know, you can win a like the idea of the artistic director has just increased in its intensity and its understanding in the past, you know, decade of just. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Marc, were you gonna say?
No, I think that's just feedback.
Oh, got you. I mean, yes, I have to say that, you know, I've seen it directly and intensely being on set, and you know, I work relatively close to as close as possible to the director and the first AD, and in the past 10 years, the choreographers and artistic directors have increased their relevance on set and their just respect and taking over the set for all these main talents and these, you know, huge celebrities. Their pull is very deep. You know, it's like it's interesting to see how, you know, important the small specific movements have become, you know, that we see on camera these days.
What do you mean? You said small specific movements. I want you to expound on that just a little bit.
Actually, literally small specific movements. How every single second of movement is important for video. You know, everything it's a lot more focused on than it was, you know, say 15, 20 years ago. You know, it's
in terms of
very
like promoting this
specific
brand or
action. No, I'm like very specifically every specific movement focused on. I'm getting a kind of a bit of feedback on my end, but
go ahead. No, go ahead. It was me. I'm putzing around with stuff, man. I'm trying to figure this out.
no worries. I think we all are. But yes, it's just become, you know, very important to, you know, make sure that, you know, every second the talent is on set, that their actions are being defined and being controlled by, you know, the artistic director and the choreographer, not along with the director, you know, and the DP and the, you know, so everything, it's the place of movement has just increased its sense of, you know, respect, I would say, if that,
movement
makes sense.
A commercial set is a perfect example of movement. I mean, you see it literally, you know, with movement of people moving, constantly moving on a commercial set, and also you see it in front of the camera, you know, with action. So I think a commercial set is a great example of movement.
Okay, exactly. It sets the tone. You know what I mean? Because we've all been on set before. The movement of the set, and that's the tone. That's the tone of whether or not you're going to get the quality shots that you're going to get, whether or not the camaraderie is going to bring about the creative inspiration to pull off whatever it is that you're going to do. You know, the movement has a lot to do with it, and the planning goes along with it. And when you're talking about movie production, you know, planning has a lot to do with the way and the essence in which things will move and happen. You know what I mean? Like, because ultimately, if things aren't set in the correct, you know, parameters, and if it doesn't have the set energy, then you don't get the maximum amount of creativity that could come out of that experience, you know. So all of those different essence of the project has to be prevalent. It has to come into play, and that goes into everybody playing their part and knowing what the part is the battle. Knowing your part and fully knowing your part is ultimately
owning your part too. Like, everybody wants to be a star, but it don't matter how. There are no such thing as small parts, as they say.
Right.
But I wanted to switch gears for a second because we did get a question. I finally figured out how to scroll through all the
all right.
We figured this out, y'all. This is trial by fire. You know, we told you already. That's how five roll. Like, we just jump into the deep into the pool, and we like, yo, I can backstroke, so we gonna stay above water.
We gonna stay afloat.
Shout out to Green Hills Estates, GHE in Springfield. This question comes from one of the GHE legends, Tyrell Anderson. Now he looks like a bowling ball, or more like I'm not even gonna go in because he gonna light me up all over Facebook, yo. Like,
hey, I want to hear comments. Light Mikey up about this.
So, Tyrell was my sister's best friend, and he's also the older brother of my best friend Joey. Shout out to my best friend Joey Lloyd, my childhood best friend out there in Vegas, holding it up, doing what he do. But Tyrell was asking. Tyrell said, and you know he a clown. Let me just preface with that. So, who is the true creator of the Moonwalk, and was rerun a legit dancer? It's a 2-part question.
Ooh.
Who?
Okay, so
who? I don't want to misspeak. We all know Jackson take up the moonwalk. I mean, that's just
okay.
Let that be known. It was not his. He had the platform to project it to the rest of the world. Right. And then the rerun question.
I do have this tidbit of information, and those that are out there that are listening, Google it, figure it out, let me know, chime in. But I do know this specific fact. Those that grew up in the 80s, if you're familiar with the movie Breaking, how many of you are familiar with the movie Breaking, right? Turbo, Ozone, yeah, Kelly, yeah,
the broomstick,
the broomstick, yeah.
Classics.
So what happened
nobody
was
during the 80s that don't know
about Breaking. Honestly, Breaking was one of the movies that inspired me to be a dancer. I mean, my sister was my first dance teacher, but it's movies like Breaking and Dirty Dancing that made me want to be a dancer.
Look,
and
you want to know what inspired me to be a dancer?
What?
You got that glow.
Hey, The Last Dragon.
The Last Dragon. Not Bruce Leroy.
Because they did have the dance breaks in the joke, but you got the
glow. They did.
Bruce Leroy.
Man,
Bruce Leroy.
And the little Asian kid.
Shout out to Bruce
growing up.
Shout out to Bruce Leroy. Don't nobody ever remember Bruce Leroy's real name.
Do we know his real name? Somebody need to chime in and send us his real name.
We apologize for that, Bruce Leroy.
Yeah, Bruce Leroy. But you know who you are.
You know who you are.
You changed the game for black people, for black men that wanted to be dancers or martial artists. Come on now. You changed the game.
Look, if you don't know about The Last Dragon, first of all, it's Keisha Knight Pulliams. It's her first movie. Like 3 in that movie.
I forgot about that.
Vanity.
Keisha Knight Pulliams.
Vanity was in
Vanity.
Vanity,
oh
yes.
My God.
I remember that.
I mean, but really, they're the only ones that had careers afterwards. Shout out to Vanity. Shout out to Prince for setting all that up. You know what I mean? Like, rest in power.
Yes.
Rest in
legendary
power.
one.
Okay. Yes.
Oh,
right.
What about rerun?
Let's get back on topic.
All right.
So going
rerun back.
Okay, are we talking about the moonwalk? Or are we talking about rerun?
Yes. No, we're going back to the moonwalk, the beginning of the moonwalk. Now, legendary tap dancers have been doing the moonwalk as an exit strategy of their performance for eons, for at least hundreds of years. So what happened is once breaking or once hip hop really came into the forefront and b-boy was a prominent thing that was bursting out into the mainstream, Michael Jackson actually went to Ozone and Turbo. I'm not sure of their real names, but it was said
they both had Jerry curls.
Yes, it was
Shalimar.
Said that
his name Shalimar.
Shalimar.
Shalimar. His name Shalimar.
Dance
with that
history. There you go.
His name Shalimar.
Shalimar. All right, I love it. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's the dance history. Bring it in. Google. All right. So, with that being said, he hired them to teach him how to moonwalk. Now, it was under contract that they were not allowed to let anybody know that they were rehearsing with Michael Jackson. Period.
They weren't allowed to do the dance.
They weren't allowed to do the moonwalk anymore.
Publicly, yeah.
Yeah. All this was done by paper and money.
Yeah.
Prior to his solo performance
on Motown 25.
For the Motown 25. Yep. And once he did it, it was a wrap.
But no shade. I mean, we all love Michael, and it's great because in so many ways, Michael was the bridge. He was a cultural broker. He was able to get the rest of the world to see Black people in a different light. Even though, he had issues with his own identity. We all know Michael is Black, And ultimately, he transcended the color boundary and also gave hip hop a space. You know what I mean? He really brought urban culture into popular culture. He made sure that it had a space.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like when you look at a lot of the videos in the 80s with pop singers and how they were really influencing, they were just doing jazz dance but dressed in urban attire and calling that street dance or hip hop. You know, Michael had a way of blending that with real hip hop. When you look at the Thriller video, yo, like he made sure that he had serious like b-boys in that video. Yeah, granted, like every other 6 Degrees of Separation, everybody got a dance teacher who was one of the dancers in the video. But those dudes, he also represented the culture in a way that other people weren't doing. You know what I mean? Even with Beat It, even though Beat It was really jazzy, it was still really street and urban, yo. Like, and it had elements of pop. It had elements of like hip hop.
Not everyone can be the conveyor of or cultural broker, as you put it. You know, it's gotta be a special person.
He was groomed for that. He was groomed for that. He was groomed for that from day one. You know what I mean?
And that was part of Michael's gift, is he was able to expose certain things that were only privy to an urban or underserved community. You know, he was able.
Who's doing that today?
I mean, it's different. Like, you know, we live in a world now where
everything is urban,
unquote, is more accepted.
The internet makes everything accessible.
You know, we live in a different time. I think there's a lot more people doing it, but it's harder to be recognized for that level of philanthropy just because of the fact that there's so much information. And what we're now fed is not just through the television and through the movie screens. Like, we all have our own personal devices now that we can record on and produce our own information and produce our own content. So those seeds have been planted and they're germinating. The flowers are blooming. We just don't know where, because the sun is always shining. So flowers blooming everywhere.
What about the second part of the question, though?
The second part of the question, is Rerun a legit dancer? Rerun. For those that don't know Rerun, exactly. Rerun is the pop locker. He put pop locking on the map. Like, even though he didn't
popularize pop locking.
Exactly. I gave shout out to Tyrell, but we got to give Rerun his shout out too, because, you know, like, if Rerun wasn't legit, why you know his name? Huh?
Right.
Oh, now you know what's the twist to that?
Huh.
Okay, so twist to that. You give Ron shout outs for popularizing pop locking on a commercial level. What do you give Miley Cyrus for twerking?
But she didn't do it well. That's my biggest. My biggest issue is that. And look, I'm not hating on Miley Cyrus.
But I think since she's done it, it's been popularized.
She made the attempt. Yeah, I'm not gonna say that she didn't have a hand in. It's funny because one of my students in my Intro to World Dance class, I think one of the first years I taught this class, did a report on twerking and talked about how Miley Cyrus had a role in the popularization of twerking. I'm not saying that she didn't. She, again, it's like Michael. She had the platform. Michael did the moonwalk well for his moonwalk. Did she represent twerking well? No. That's why so many other people that came behind her were able to just blow it. Don't nobody really remember Miley Cyrus twerking no more. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even remember it. Not till you brought it up. I'm not hating on her, but flat booty and the twerk wasn't good. Like, no. What we say, Dougie? A cardboard booty never make the booty clap.
I remember that.
Remember that.
Now the thing is that, I mean, coming from Atlanta, Georgia, growing up in the 80s, that's what I grew up with, is, you know, black women and the black culture, you know, doing this type of dancing the entire time.
We got
you know,
go-go.
and it was
Easier.
always hated upon.
Wow.
It was looked at as, you know, them being hoes, sluts,
Yep.
and everything else.
Well, some of
And
them
it
women in the
wasn't
go-go
until was so funny because, you know, Miley really just came out, what, 2010, 2011, you know. So you figure all this time, and it wasn't until she was hanging around strippers trying to reinvent herself or come out with that identity for herself that she kind of fell in love with this, you know, kind of raw, untamed or frowned upon type of movement that was, you know, vulgar to the general public, that would kind of like, you know, be put into their face and be like, look at me, I'm doing this. And then they kind of fell in love with it. So now you have, you know, middle-aged white women around the world twerking.
Same thing with pole dancing. But you know, it's
just like Madonna and voguing. You know, that was
Right.
those were emulating black gay men. You know,
yes,
Right.
But voguing also came from Vogue. Yes, she was popularizing the thing that was around the culture that she was. Again, she was reflecting what she was experiencing. She gave a platform to expose something that she already knew existed, so that the rest of the world could see that it existed. I don't think that was Miley Cyrus's intention. I'm not saying that was Madonna's intention. That's just my impression of it. I think for Miley, it was more just a stunt to get the attention that she got. When it comes to twerking, though, if we're digging deeper, we know that twerking is not something that was provocative from its inception, like when it came about, like, because if you've spent any time researching West African tradition,
exactly,
like the way that these women know how to flex the muscles in their lower backs and utilize things within they gluteus minimus and maximus, that skill has been around.
Medius.
Yeah.
Since like T-Lop Crew.
Maximus and medius and minimus.
Medius and medius, yes.
Minimus and minimus. Oh, y'all in kinesiology right
We're
now.
in
Marshall,
yeah, man,
kinesiology
we're
right now,
in the kinesiology, man. You're talking about,
what the parts of the body are.
Yeah, man.
Shout out
Where's
to
the
Dr.
phalange, Dougie? Where's
Shout
the
out
phalange?
to, huh?
Where's the
phalange? Oh my goodness.
You know, that's
my
Friends,
goodness.
that's a Friends reference, Dougie. That's a Friends
Well,
reference.
for one thing, for those that aren't talking about, who don't know what the phalanges are, we're talking about our fingers and toes here, people. So we're talking about, you know, the fingers and toes, and what's attached to that are the metatarsals and the metacarpals. Yeah, so those are the bony structures that are connected to those. Yeah, so we're working our way back in. We're working our way back into the appendageal skeletal and the axial skeletal.
Don't give him no vocabulary.
Yeah, don't make me go there. Don't make me go there. I'm 6 drinks in, but I can still spit the vocabulary of the anatomy. Don't get it twisted.
Oh, Marshall.
Come on, kinesiology.
Hey, what up, man?
This is Beverly.
Okay, give a shout out to Beverly. Oh man, who's a phenomenal hip hop, modern, ballet, contemporary choreographer and educator. And
getting your shout outs,
for those dancers that are out there, be looking out for a encyclopedia of dance coming from Beverly Batista soon. Shouts out. Shouts out.
5 years.
She's one of the fires of dance educators that you will be hearing from in the next year or two. I said it first. D Styles.
Said it, 2 tears in the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Guys.
Yes.
I think we can wrap up our session for today.
Yeah, I think that's a. Say this is a good start.
Again, no, and I'm not even gonna say when it's gonna happen. I mean, we're not gonna say, but we'll talk about it. And
yes,
I think this went well for our first attempts to go live on Facebook. And I'm kind of glad that we have this platform. I think we can really make use of this in a lot of different ways and bring more people into it. You know.
Definitely. Can I
We
give
have tons
special
of people.
shouts out to our special guest, our first guest, Marshall King,
Marshall
our
King.
director.
Thank you,
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes. Shouts out to
Thank you,
Beverly Batista. Yeah.
Appreciate.
You'll be hearing from her. Yeah. Some other names that we mentioned today. We mentioned Rennie Harris.
Rennie Harris,
It
yeah.
up. Yes.
We should try to get
Yeah.
Rennie on one.
Yeah, we can do that. We're
Yeah,
gonna
we
get
get
Crystal
Rennie
on before we get Rennie on. Though we got
Shouts out to
True.
Crystal.
we get Crystal
Yeah,
on, we
gave
get
her one.
Dwayne on. Like
Yeah.
Raven Simone.
We get
Shout out
Ray
to
on.
Ray.
Try to
shout
get
out
Ray
to
on.
Dwayne, shout out to Lydia.
Yes.
Shout
Lydia.
out to my Empress, because I know she out there listening. Nah, baby.
Baby.
Yes.
Shout out.
Baby. Yes. Yes, we would give it all out.
And Mariana too. Don't forget your wife, Dougie.
Mariana Sanders. Yes.
Shout out Mariana.
So
Who's
cool.
telling me
I
I'm too
love
loud.
y'all.
I love
I
you
love
guys.
doing this. This
Yes.
felt so natural and so real. We're gonna keep this flowing. Let the world see it. This is how Dougie, like how you said, take what we already know and expand on it, yo. Like this is what
Yes,
we've
sir.
been doing for years. Is sitting around having dialogues and educating each other while we educate the world and be educated by the world. So let's keep this movement flowing, man.
Let's
do
do
it.
Sounds
I
good.
love it.
IV for life.
IV.
Ivy.
All right, thank you guys.
Brothers in motion. Everybody move.
Yes. Everybody move.
Move, everyone. Later.
Peace.
Holla.